thought you were gonna say we use our home rule authority and just abolish.
Be like Arizona.
That's what I'm saying.
Hawaii.
Hawaii and Arizona.
Hawaii's out there, who knows what time zone they're.
You ready, Patrick?
Yes.
Okay. Want to welcome you all to the March 16th council meetings, and we'll start with roll call.
Thought it was Lane,
Yeah.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Walker,
Here.
Ritter,
Here.
Murdoch,
Here.
all present.
All right, if you'll stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First up is consent agenda. We have to approve the minutes of the council meeting on March 2nd, and approve the pay ordinance number 803, and approve the minutes of the council meeting on March 4th. Have any questions or discussion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All right, I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion on that? All right, roll call.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Call in public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on this agenda. The comments that are discussed under call in public may or may not be acted upon by the council during this meeting. There's a 4-minute time limit. Please stand and be recognized and state your name and address. Do I have anybody in there to call? All right, come on up.
Darrell Zimmerman, 34055 West 86th Terrace, DeSoto, Kansas. Members of the DeSoto elected governing body, I have both a question and a request for you. How often have you viewed the recordings of the city council meetings that are available on the internet? My request is that if you haven't done so, is to view your actions during the March 2nd, 2017 meeting. Are you proud of how you handled yourself, or do you wish you could have a do-over? From my point of view, the March 2nd meeting was an example of the continuing vendetta directed towards the EDC and its use of funds since several of you have first been elected into this office. The small amount of funding involved and the inordinate amount of time spent by council when compared with other issues on your agenda is obvious. Hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars are approved to be spent with much less discussion. There are several cities in Johnson County that turn their transient guest tax directly over to their chambers and EDCs to spend without all the demands made on them. Transit guest tax is paid by those who rent hotel and motel rooms. So unless your spouse has kicked you out of the house, which caused you to rent a room in the motel, DeSoto residents have not contributed directly to this tax. If you want DeSoto's population to grow, as many of you have expressed, you should be concerned about the impression you make on prospective businesses and residents. Personally, I was embarrassed. Unfortunately, in some instances, when we vote for public servants, we find that they are no longer the person we thought they were when we voted them into office. You will be finalizing your vision for DeSoto in the near future. My hope is that that vision includes a process that mandates that anyone that comes before you will be treated with respect. I have some information, and to put my terms to cut you some slack. I did some research on why boards tend to micromanage nonprofits. And the city is a nonprofit, just like any other organization that comes under that classification. And I think they're quite expert. In many cases, people that serve on boards really don't know what their purpose is. They come on the board and they think that, you know, their job is to watch closely every detail. But I think the summary of it all is that boards develop the process and the way of handling issues, and the hired staff are the ones that carry out those details. And I have a copy for each of you, and I would, again, if you haven't done so, read the, watch the video and read this one. I thank you for your time.
Darrell? Do I have anyone else on the call of public? All right, come on up.
I just briefly came to say thank you. It's what I came for. And I was really pleased with how the magazine was distributed to all the businesses and residents of DeSoto. And and we're not about EDM and all that. But anyway, and then I want to let you know too that I did pay a little over the print cost because there was about 150 that I distributed to advertisers, I mean just businesses and that too. But then I ended up just doing it complimentary because the bulk of it was by the city, and I didn't want to confuse people, you know, that. But anyway, I'm going to be meeting with Mike next week, and we're going to kind of talk through some things on where you might want to go for the future, and then I have some additional options, some additional scenarios and that cost-wise and that. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing that for my Discovering DeSoto and the community.
Can I get an address, please?
Oh, address 9160 Cedar Creek Road, DeSoto.
Thanks.
Anyone else on the call of public? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Number 3 is old business. Consider ordinance revising right-of-way regulations to comply with new state law on wireless providers. Patrick?
Yes, council, we discussed this at the last meeting in some depth. I provided in your packet the same ordinance with some additional revisions that were made. The additional revisions of a substantial nature I did highlight in yellow. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. I did reach out to the gentleman that was here from Mobility, and he indicated the questions about the proposed pole for DeSoto. They were still studying that to see if it was at 65 feet, would that require an additional pole? He doesn't have the answer to that. So with that, I'll just open it up for questions. And just for the public's benefit, this again has to do with the new state law that allows wireless providers the right to put infrastructure in the city's right of way, and details what control the city can have over that, which is somewhat limited.
All right, anybody got any questions for Patrick?
And if we don't act, then the state statutes would govern what happens in the right of way with reference to.
That's correct. And this would be ordinance number 2413, if someone was inclined to adopt the ordinance.
Anybody got any questions? Danny?
The only thing I had, I know that, I think Rick had asked something that we were thinking about, seeing if we could, Patrick could look into Overland Park, some of Nexus deal. Was that not right? Was that not
I just wanted to say, I asked him to send me a copy.
Yeah.
And I assume everybody got one. I got
Yeah,
one
it's
to look at.
attached.
It's
Oh,
attached,
okay.
yes.
Oh.
It was attached, I read through it. I just wanted to see what other people were doing relative to height, and I'm comfortable now that we have the flexibility to easily, well, not easily, but there is a mechanism in place that we can allow for a taller pole if it will mean less poles in an area, so I'm comfortable with the revisions that Patrick's added to the ordinance.
I wonder if,
The only thing I was concerned about was also the frequency and the wattage. And I know the guy had said that he was going to give that to you, that to you, Patrick.
No,
Okay.
and actually, in your packet, I highlighted portions of the statute, and that's not a
Yeah,
requirement
that's
we
not a
can
requirement
make,
for that.
but, I mean, if he volunteers it, obviously, you know, we can accept the information, but as far as requiring that.
Well, the only reason I'm up that, you know, it'll bother the schools' equipment. It could bother the church's equipment. This is something that can cause interference if the frequency, if we don't get that ahead of time, then the only way we can fight that is through the Federal Communication Commission and file that way. But, you know, if we get it, look at it beforehand, there are some other things that maybe we could do. I was just concerned about a problem with that. And being so close to the school and causing them problems and causing the churches problems, which is roughly probably 2 miles from there, air miles. So that's the only thing that I was concerned about. I know that has nothing to do with the state statutes though.
I guess if nobody else has any other, I'd make a motion that we approve ordinance 2413.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Lane.
Yes.
McDaniel.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. New business. Consider addendum number 1 to Providence Infrastructure contract for well line cleaning and repair.
Yes, council, you'll remember we've been working on this river line crossing for quite some time. We started last summer with what we intended to be just an analysis. We were historically worried about that line that goes under the river, a 16-inch main, worried that it might be in a state of disrepair and very costly to replace. So we entered into a contract with Providence Infrastructure to run a camera down there. While they were trying to do that, they quickly realized that the camera was not going to go down there. It was nearly totally plugged with debris. And so last fall, we amended that contract to include the cleaning and jetting of the line so that we could get an analysis of that. And Mark Wade is here with Providence Infrastructure, and Paul Wade is here with Ace Pipe Cleaning to give an update on that process and some of the, what we currently know about the condition of that river line. But in addition to that, all the lines on the north side of the river that serve the wells, we have 3 wells on the north side of the river, they're in a similar state of not disrepair, but they need cleaned out as well.
So these are the lines that run from the well then to this line under the river, they're feeder lines.
Yeah, one main feeder line and then smaller ones that go up to each well. So this addendum tonight would increase the scope of services to include cleaning out of all of the wells on the north side of the river. And this would be a similar process to the one we need to do a similar thing to the mains that come from this point all the way down to the treatment plant. We just approved that funding with the bond issue revisions that we did last month, and we'll be submitting requests for proposals for that. But I think while we're here in this area, it's advisable to go ahead and get the north side done so that when we do the south side project, we're not remobilizing back and forth across the river. So the scope of services, the additional scope is included as Exhibit A. We'll add actually $34,500 to the project. So the total of $109,000 will finish this phase of the work. Exhibit B is a little update, informal update that I'll invite Mr. Wade to go ahead and give here in just a second. He's got some slides and some more information on that for you. I've included some pictures there in the staff report. And then Exhibit C is an overall spreadsheet of where we currently stand with that 2015 bond issue. You can see that this phase of the project falls in line with the funding estimates, and we'll still be able to accomplish everything that we want to accomplish with that bond funding. I know this is kind of small on 8.5 by 11. I can get that to you in spreadsheet form if you want it, but you'll be seeing this spreadsheet again because we have these other projects now that we'll be funding with the bond funds. So with that, and with your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to invite Mr. Wade to give a presentation on
Do the
this.
item A first, so we don't forget about the.
Sure, if we want to do that, yeah.
If we don't have any questions or, I'd like to make a motion, we authorize Mike to sign addendum number 1 with Providence Infrastructure Consultants for $34,500.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All right, roll call.
Walker.
Yes?
Murdoch.
Yes.
McDaniel.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
All right.
So is it on screen?
Paul, if you want to hit that light switch, please.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, council, for giving us a few minutes. It'll be a little longer. A few minutes has been a fairly complex project, and we did want to, in our last progress meeting with Mr. Brungard, he suggested we come in and kind of tell you what we've been doing north of the river and under the river, and kind of let you know what we have to date. We have some good news at the end of this presentation, actually, so that always is helpful.
It's not a never-ending project after all.
It is, yeah. It seems like it keeps going on and on. But hopefully we see the light at the end of the pipeline. So my name is Mark Wade. I'm at Providence Infrastructure. Paul Wade. It's no coincidence we have the same last name, but we work with separate companies. He's with the group Ace Pipe Cleaning, heads up this part of the business that they support us on projects of this nature. We do both sewer and water. So in this case, the water pipeline, and as Mike mentioned, we started the project last summer with what we thought would be a fairly straightforward assessment on the pipe, which routinely happens on water mains, but in this case we discovered some issues that we'll talk about. Paul will actually talk about the project in particular and show you the results of that. I just wanted to let you, it's probably hard to see the actual pipeline. Let's see. Yeah. This is, it's a 16-inch pipeline that was installed originally beginning north of the river, and it extends down to the water treatment plant. That pipeline was originally constructed, we actually don't know when it was built because there's no as-built, but we're thinking it was probably during or after World War II as part of the facilities on the south side by the Department of Army. In 1960, however, we do know that that portion of the pipeline that collects water from the 3 wells on the north side and goes under the Kansas River was actually relayed because the old line was starting to shift with the river. So it right now is
kind of pushing 70 years old, and the big concern, as Mike suggested, was the condition of that pipe since it's been there a long time. Plus, there's quite a bit of pressure gradient going under the river, which tells us there was probably some kind of a blockage. So the intent of the project was to get inside this pipeline, and Paul will explain how that was done, and to see the condition of the inside of the pipe, since we can't see the outside, obviously, under the river itself. And with this increasing pressure drop, the concern was is the city had to continue to run these wells higher and higher. That's not a good thing on the pipe structural integrity of that age. So that project started last summer, and where we ended up is a project. That had several phases. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul, and he'll describe to you that's the pipeline on the north side that we're focused on right now. And he'll tell you what when we brought Ace Pipe out and realized how extensive the issue was inside the pipe, he'll talk to you about the steps that they went through and the purpose of the amendment today, the additional cleaning and final inspection. So I'll just turn it over to him.
Great. Thanks again, Mike and Mr. Mayor, for having us, City Council. So this project has been exciting to say the least. Last summer when we first stuck our first cameras into the pipe, we put cameras in this vault. Here there was an existing valve that we have since replaced. We also dug an excavation down here on 79th Street. And when we accessed the pipe there, we had basically drilled a small hole to insert a very small camera. And usually our camera, especially in a pipe as big as a 16-inch, will have no problem clearing it and traveling down the pipeline. But our camera literally got stuck in the mud. So as we were performing this initial survey, we found, okay, there's a condition in this pipe that we need to remedy before we can even take a look at it. So Providence, my dad and his company called us, and of course we're the pipe cleaning specialists. So we were able to mobilize a relatively unique piece of equipment. So this is our phase one. This is the first initial inspection last summer, and these two pictures here on the right-hand side are some of the screen captures that we got from that initial study. Now I can tell you this is an HD camera, but unfortunately the water we were taking the picture through was not HD quality water. This is raw water, it all goes to the treatment plant from this point on. But we saw this obstruction, it was very clear, and from a physical standpoint, we were encountering some pretty significant incrustation. So phase two was the cleaning phase, and as the map on the previous slide alluded to, we're now at a point where we have cleaned the river crossing. And the difficulty with cleaning the river crossing is that this pipeline actually dips underneath the river. So the riverbank itself is eroded about 40 feet on both sides of the river, and there's no exposed pipe in that section where we know this pipe goes under the river. So we know that it dips severely underneath the river and creates basically a siphon, like a J-trap under your sink. So as we were cleaning it, the difficulty in cleaning a pipe like that is that your debris will naturally want to settle towards the middle of the pipe. So we brought out a special truck. It's a long-range jetter. It pumps 190 gallons a minute through a special nozzle. This is actually the nozzle here down at the base. And this nozzle scours the pipe with water pressure, like a pressure washer. So we were able to insert this on the north side of the river and jet successfully all the way to 79th Street. You can see in these pictures here on this left-hand side, this is a cutaway of the pipe when we cut out the valve. This is actually that valve sitting there from the north vault. We removed this valve and put in a straight piece of pipe. It's a huge improvement. The valve was beyond operable at that point in time. But you can kind of see, if you look really closely at this picture, and I'm sure we can get some good high-res copies to Mike, but it's interesting because the mud has actually accumulated in like a stratified layer form. So it almost looks like tree rings. You can see on some years the mud was a little lighter than on other years. It's really pretty interesting. But what we found every place that we cut the pipe was that the pipe itself, and Mark will talk about this more, but the pipe itself was in great condition. So we knew we had this red mud being infiltrated. And so now we're at the point where we're the last remaining cleaning items for us are these well laterals. We really feel confident that this infiltration has been stopped, and that with this last little bit of cleaning on the north side, we can kind of set you guys up for a long time to come.
All right, thanks, Paul. Yeah, this is the budget that Paul mentioned. That will actually complete all the work down to 79th Street. So you'll have a fairly clean piping system from those 3 wells on the north side down to 79th Street. We have not put the engineering report together yet. We're waiting actually for this contract amendment, which time, in fact, I think they're scheduled to do it here pretty soon, next week. Be able to finish it up. We actually wanted to try to get all this work completed before water demand goes up, and that will give you a well-performing system on the north side. The dilemma is that this is not the entire system. So going back to this site layout that we described earlier, again, the system that we're talking about that will be completed under the amendment takes us down to 79th Street. However, what happens at 79th Street is the pipeline turns west and goes to what's called an H valve that brings in the 4 wells on the south side. So we've got 3 wells on the north, 4 wells on the south. And when those four wells enter the system, the line now becomes parallel. So from that point all the way to the water treatment plant, there's parallel 16-inch pipes. And at this point, the assumption is, and we've discussed it at length with Mike and Doug and Marshall, is that we believe that probably we're going to continue to see this buildup of material all the way to the water plant. And so, kind of anticipating that, as Mike mentioned, we put an estimate to get us all the way to the water plant of about $400,000. It represents about 52,000 feet of pipe, which is a lot of pipe. I think 11 miles of pipe. It would really be advantageous at this stage to try to get that done before high summer demand, and that will give the city, plenty of capacity under any conditions. It's going to lower your energy costs for sure, because it'll be reducing the amount of pressure that Doug has to create at those wellheads to get water all the way to the water treatment plant, because we're going from what used to be a 16-inch pipe that became a 5-inch pipe, and now we're back up to 16. And under the proposal, it would actually include cleaning, inspection, and some modifications of the piping. But the cleaning methodology this time, we believe, based on our conversations with Paul, is that it's going to be a pigging operation. We'll be discussing that in more detail with Mike later on, but it's going to be a totally different method of getting the pipe clean. And with a final report, we're kind of right now shooting for midsummer. As I mentioned at the beginning, there is good news. Everything we've seen of this pipe, from the points where we've exposed to the points where ACE has inspected internally the pipe, it is in remarkably good condition. The ductile portion, the stuff that was built in 1960, originally was designed with a thin layer of cement-lined ductile pipe. The cement Paul took us to 2 of the locations last week. It's in remarkably good condition. The pipe looks almost brand new. In fact, there's a video. We kind of passed over it. I'll briefly show you the, here, how do I get, so the video, that's a video, and it shows you that's the exposed pipe on the south side, and it gets pretty close in. Got a little bit of, maybe. It looks smooth on my computer. As you get into the pipe, we're looking inside so you can compare the pipeline in the left side with the one on the right side. And what you're seeing on that inside is a little bit of staining, but it's on the cement lining, and we're seeing absolutely no pitting, corrosion. The lettering on the pipe, believe it or not, on the outside is still there. So we suspect, and the engineering report will show, that it's probably because the pipe is laid in material that has no corrosive qualities to it. So at the end of the day, once this pipeline project is completed, there's probably going to be very little in terms of cost to rehabilitate the pipeline. We suspect it's going to be good for another probably 20 to 40 years. So, other than the fact that it was full of material, we really are encouraged to see what the pipe looks like, the portions that have been cleaned.
So this might be a really silly question, but how did it all get in there? I mean, where does it come from? Are there cracks throughout it somewhere, or?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we're still trying to ascertain where that is. We suspect from the history of this pipe, there was actually 5 wells on the north side of the river at one time. 5 or
6 actually.
If we go
6
back.
originally.
Here, if we go back. So what we found was, we looked at, on this north side, we've looked at all of this pipe here already, and we already cut a temporary excavation here. There were 2 additional wells that are basically represented off this map that are now abandoned, and this red material was specifically coming from this direction, from these 2 abandoned wells. So when we capped it, the sediment was relatively uniform in its distribution from the north to south end of this pipe. But as we're able to look up this well lateral here, we didn't find any of this red material. So we really believe that it was coming from one of these now abandoned wells.
Short answer is probably the wells themselves. And then they have the casing pipe with screens that's supposed to keep that material out, and they're in an aquifer layer that should be sand or gravel that shouldn't have a whole lot of that, but evidently they've gotten that silt in over time, and that's where it came from the wells themselves.
Very sticky material, just layered inside the pipe for years, and there wasn't enough velocity to scour the pipe. So all that we think is going to be mitigated. And ACE did, where that red box is, they did actually put a permanent cap on the end of the pipe, so there's no longer going to be any intrusion of this other groundwater into it.
Wow, you guys are an
It's
easy
a big
crowd.
project.
We usually get all the tough questions.
Well, so for the council's sake, like I mentioned, we authorized another $400,000 to clean the rest of these lines, and I'll be getting out a request for proposals. Probably we'll handle that as a kind of a design build proposal process rather than design bid build. So I'll be getting that out in the next month or so, in an effort to try and make this deadline so that we're not in the middle of that during the summer. I think if we're gonna hit that during the June, July, August period, probably have to delay that until the fall. I don't think we want to be in the middle of this while we're trying to keep demands.
Yeah.
So we'll try and make that happen.
Does the 52,000 feet represent just one of the 16-inch
No,
lines?
It's the whole thing.
That's-
It's the parallel.
Do we need both of those for our
Yeah.
capacity right now, or could we clean one and then?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, we suspect right now that we're using both of them. That doesn't mean we have to. If they're both plugged like this, then obviously we have to use both of them.
I just say like our
Well-
outlet out of the treatment plant's 12-inch?
It's 24.
24,
Yeah,
okay.
but I mean, it's a different high service pump, it's a different system altogether. My concern is that we're using both of them, and they're both 2/3 plugged. And so the hope would be that you could shut one line off and just work on it and get it all clean. But I worry about the capacity of that other one at that same time. So we're gonna have to be careful about how and when we do that. But that's a good question, can we do just one? I think we have the funding to do both.
Yeah.
And really, from a cleaning perspective, the structures that we're going to build to pig this line, pneumatic pigging is where we put basically a cone-shaped object in the pipe. And as we force it down with water pressure, the water will force its way around that plug and scour the pipe then around it. And so the structures that we'll build to do this, they're going to be permanent structures. So then in the future, should you want to clean these lines, you're just going to be able to pop the hatch and throw a pig in and shoot it down. Doug or Marshall could do that on their own. These pigs cost a couple $100 each. So the benefit to doing them both at the same time is that if we're able to isolate one and not shut down the city. The difficulty with this river crossing was that this was basically your only drinking straw for a really long time. So when we were working on this, and when we had it cut open and had it dewatered, we were on a really narrow timeline because we had to be working always with the looming deadline of running out of water. So you all didn't run out of water, so the pipe is back online, the taps are still flowing. But if we keep the two-line the cleaning program as we've kind of imagined it, it'll prevent a lot of that.
And I did want to mention, Doug and Marshall were instrumental in getting this
They were
process.
phenomenal.
I mean, we had, there's a lot of gears to be shifted midstream, you know, all the way through this thing, and Marshall in particular worked very hard. And, it was just a great asset to the whole
Yeah,
process.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's the report.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you very
Thank you,
much.
guys.
Thank you.
You can flip that light back on, Mark.
Yeah.
Moving on. Item 4B, consider temporary use permit for DeSoto Days.
Council Heather Lucas has taken the helm of the DeSoto Days Committee in making this event work this year. She couldn't be here tonight and was excited about presenting some information to you and having this discussion with you, so she's asked if we could table this item until the April 6th meeting.
I make a motion, we table, agenda item 4B
To when?
April 6th, just
till April 6th.
Did you second that, Kevin?
Yeah.
You did? Okay. Have a motion. Motion and a second to table. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Lane,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Item 4C, consider bids for the 91st Street rehab project.
Yes, council, more good news. We had tremendous response to this bid. We had 10 bidders on this project, and they're all very familiar names. I was very impressed, very happy to see that many bidders. The low bidder is significantly less than we thought, and our initial estimates were somewhere around $348,000 for this work. By the time I got it all designed and planned out and all the quantities done, my final engineer's estimate was more than $316,000. The low bidder was submitted by McEnany Construction at just under $229,000. So that was very good news. We had a number of bidders that were just slightly higher in the $240,000 range. All the bidders, you know, I think were within a group that was very representative of the cost, you know, that you'd expect for this type of service. We reviewed those. The bid tabs are included. Don't see any discrepancies in the bid, so I'm recommending that we award the project to McEnany Construction in the amount of $228,999.99. That does bring up another discussion, since we've saved so much money. Table 1 on page 2 of the staff report shows the capital improvement program that we've approved for this year. It has the initial estimates where we thought we were going to be, and then the colorized column is either new estimates or actual bids, or kind of where we stand now with these projects. And as projected now, it looks like we're going to be about $80,500 under the funding level. So that brings up a discussion, you know, we might want to have, or we don't necessarily need to, about what to do with the extra funding. So table 2 I've included in the staff report just shows 4 of those projects that were on kind of our final list there earlier this year that didn't quite make the funding cut. And then I've thrown another one on there for 87th Street curb replacement. Ron has talked about this one a couple times in the past, and We actually last week went out and sent the street sweeper out to sweep up our curb. And usually when you sweep curbs, you just sweep debris off of curbs, but this time we're actually sweeping the curbs themselves out of the road. The last couple, I know it's been happening for 4 or 5 years, but the last couple of years, those have just gone away. So tonight, we can have that discussion if you want. The only caveat I would say is that the bulk of our work this year has to do with the maintenance program. We've got what we think is gonna be about $168,000 of work that's bidding on March 30th, or about half of that's bidding on March 30th. At that time, we'll really know kind of where to set these things. So we might wanna just delay the discussion until then. But tonight, I'd ask for your approval for the low bid. I'm also asking for a little bit of a contingency fund. It's a unit cost project, so if those costs overrun at all, I'd like the flexibility to be able to just increase the unit compensation for that. So I'm asking for $11,000 in contingency. Actually, technically, it'd be $11,000.01 for a total nice round project authorization of $240,000. And I'll answer any questions you have and invite you to have that discussion on the other funding if you wish.
Well, I was, with the favorable bids and the need to, 91st Street itself also needs attention in other locations, right? I mean, what we're repairing here is not the whole of the project, right?
Yeah, actually it is. Yeah, it's a mill and overlay of the total
Okay.
width, or the total length, and about half the curbs, and that really is the only
Yeah,
curbs that
all
need
right.
replacing. Yeah, this would do the whole thing. Now, we've talked in the past about a broader, complete reconstruction project with concrete and all that. Yeah, I think this would do the whole thing.
No, I guess I had it in my head, this was kind of cutting off at the administration bill.
Well, right. Remember previous estimates we had, because it's such a big dollar item, we cut it in half. Yeah, we've talked about doing half of it for years and years.
Okay.
This is the whole thing.
I think since we have some bids coming up soon, it might be better just to wait until after the March 30th bids come in to have to figure out where we want to go and what we want to spend it on, but it would seem to, I guess the challenge is if we delay, if we want to put out like a street project later in the season, we're probably not going to get as favorable pricing generally.
Yeah, potentially.
Potentially, I don't, if the pricing's good and we could maybe amend the McEnany contract to add the 87th Street work, if that's something that would work out, that might be the best way to extend it and use it, but I still think let's see where we are when the next batch of bids come in and see what we're really got, and then we can have the full discussion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we might have more money to work with,
Or less.
or less. Yeah.
I like the optimism, Mayor.
Well, everything's been looking pretty good so far, so. All right. Was there any further discussion? Can we have a bid on?
Yeah, I'll make a
motion?
motion to accept the low bid for 91st Street rehabilitation project and award the project to McEnany Construction in the amount of $228,999.99.
I'll second that.
Is that
Give them the contingency.
the contingency? Do you want to add that?
I had it in a separate motion.
Oh.
You can
Oh,
add it if
sorry.
you want.
Oh, I didn't read it.
That's right.
So do you want to add that to your motion?
Oh, I can if you'd like, I don't,
No, we'll do it.
doesn't matter. I just
Okay.
read
We have
I
a
just
motion.
don't
Do we have a second?
told me to do it.
Did we have a second?
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Danny did.
Oh, okay. Further discussion, roll call.
Walker,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes,
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right.
now I'll move to authorize an additional $11,000.01 in contingency funding from capital improvement fund for the 91st Street rehabilitation project.
Have a second?
Second.
Second by Kevin. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Lane.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
McDaniel.
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right.
You know that one.
What's that? No, I would not. Pennies count.
All right. Item 4D, consider proposal for compensation study.
Yes, council, we've had a couple of discussions just internally and even with the council recently about the kind of the overall wage structure in the city, and specifically we ran into this last summer when we were trying to hire for street department and parks department personnel. We found we had to increase our starting wage rates to get the type of candidates that would really work for us. Doing that gave some compression to the bottom end of our wage scale. We had existing employees that were making just about that, or even maybe even a little bit less than we had to offer the new ones coming in. So what resulted is sort of a compression of the lower end. But then, in addition to that, it's been, I think the last time we really even looked at our place in the workforce marketplace in terms of what our compensation package is was 2003. So, you know, it's been 13, 14 years since we've looked at that. And I think there would be great benefit to establishing where we are in the market, because we've lost some people over time, to just get a better feel for what our compensation structure is, what it is compared to surrounding entities, and just the labor market in general. But then lastly, I've been a little bit dissatisfied with our process of performance reviews and wage increases on a yearly basis. It's an easy thing to budget. We just, really what we do is we look at surrounding communities, see what they're doing, look at our budget, see what we can do, and we just throw a flat percentage at it, which that's fine, it's worked, but in practice, it just means that almost every single employee just gets that percentage of wage increase unless their performance is just really subpar. And so I don't really know that that's the correct mechanism to, one, identify someone who's outstanding, from a performance basis, and be able to award that person for an outstanding performance, or identify a lower performer, and have a mechanism really where we can, establish by policy, what maybe a maximum pay range is for a particular job description. Most other organizations have, and that's the third component is our job descriptions really haven't been updated in more than 10 years. And, our jobs kind of change almost on a yearly basis, sort of what certain people do in certain positions. So it's kind of threefold, to establish these job descriptions, and then be able to establish a reasonable compensation pay rate within each description, and then mold a policy that moves someone through that pay range where we can award the good performers and and maybe motivate the poor performers to do better. I think the first step in all that process is something like this, where we have a consultant come in and perform that analysis for us. I mean, we sort of do it in-house, maybe okay, but I think coming from an outside source would take some of the maybe potential internal biases out of it. And the intent, definitely from my point, I tell you what, 100%, that the intent is not to decrease anybody's wage. We're not going to come and say, well, employee X, your range is, goes only up to this much, and you're making over that, so you got to take a cut. That's the last thing I want to do. But I do think it would be a benefit, and it's time for sure. We're kind of overdue for something like this. So in preparation for that, I went out and just reached out to consultants that do this type of work. There are half a dozen of them in the area. I was able to get 2 written kind of firm proposals, and a third basically kind of a cost estimate, essentially. I think the one that would best suit our needs is the first one that's in your packet from the Austin Peters Group. Their proposal, and what I asked for is kind of a qualification statement and then a cost proposal. On page 14 of the Austin Peters proposal, they've got a fee schedule that is sort of a cafeteria list of items. And what I'd like to do is item 1, which is an external equity. They go out into the marketplace and see, kind of get a comparison for wage rates in this particular market. Item 2 would be to recommend some alternatives for implementation of compensation, the policy structure, whatever nature that might take. I don't know. I know some cities do, you know, it's a cost of living, and then there's a merit-based component to it. There's 1,000 different ways you can do it, all of which I think would be improvement over what we're doing now. And then the other one is the fifth item, their job descriptions. And that really needs to be done almost before you do an external equity study, because you've got to have the job descriptions to compare with other entities. So I would suggest, actually what I'm asking for, it would be a total of fee of $8,400 to Austin Peters to start this study. And we would fund this just out of all the departments that'll be involved. So from miscellaneous contractual services, from all the different departments in the city. My hope would be that we would have at least partial results from this during our budget time. We've got an accelerated budget schedule that we are trying to get done by the 1st of June. The schedule here would allow for that if we get right on it. And if not, I think we'd have some partial results back. Not that I don't know that we'll be in a position to really roll in these policy considerations with compensation and evaluations and all that, but we would at least know that yes, we are competitive in the marketplace, and you don't really need to do anything drastic, or you're way over, or you're under. I think we get that level of result back like that. So I'll stop there and answer any questions you might have about
Did
it.
you say there were 3 companies, Mike?
Yeah, the Austin Peters,
Gallagher and...
the Gallagher, and the third one,
Springstead was an email.
Springstead, was that in between the two?
Yeah, it was in between the two.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I lost it myself.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just an
What
email, and
page?
I just said, hey guys, how much is this gonna cost? And I told them kind of basically what I wanted, and they just gave me an email back, said, looks like between 15 and 20,000. And I know Springstead does a lot of these. I know of several of them they've done here in the area, and they'd be good at it. But I think, that Austin Peters, again, they've got a lot of these references, from around the state. I know personally of a couple that they've done. And then, the cafeteria item, cost and pricing for it. You just look at the cheapest.
I kind of like the proposal form.
Are there any more questions from Art? How about a motion?
I'll make a motion that we have Mike authorize the fees from 1 to 5, 1, 2, and 5 for $8,500. $8,400 for the work study, compensation study for the Soto campus.
Want to include the Austin Peters group?
Austin Peter Group, yes.
All right.
Second.
Have a second? Any further discussion? Roll call.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right.
Thank you, council. That'd be helpful.
Executive session, I suppose we have one. Nope. Advisory report from Mike.
The only thing I wanted to report, you got your budget report in the council packet. I sent out an activity report by email this afternoon. Ron, I put one in your box. The apartment complex, we issued a grading permit, and it looks like we're gonna be issuing building permits here in the next couple weeks. There's no place on that site to park anything. You know, that site is completely full with improvements. And so what they've asked us to do is allow on-street parking right just adjacent to the site there on Commerce Drive. So
For worker, you mean for workers?
for workers, yeah, during construction. We wouldn't allow semis or big trucks there, just kind of for the workers' vehicles. Patrick, does you think that would require a temporary ordinance of some sort?
Are there signs, no parking signs?
There are no
there?
parking signs, so what we could do is just put bags over those, and I guess that would work. I didn't want to do that, just at least telling you guys.
Yeah, it should be authorized, but yeah, it's fine. If there's not a sign, you can't give a ticket, so
Yeah.
putting bags over them, that work is fine.
Serve the purpose.
Yeah.
If everybody's okay with that, I think that's what we'll intend to do. And then we'll just have to make sure that we don't have, my concern, there's good sightlines there, you know, you can see past, but I wouldn't want big trailers and big trucks there and, you know, backhoes and stuff out on the street. Just from a street maintenance part of it, but, you know, from the traffic standpoint, so. So if there's no objections, you'll see that happen. And kind of excited to get started. They got their stormwater, well, their erosion control up, and they're starting to scratch around a little bit out there on site, so looking forward to getting that going.
They gonna make sure they keep this thoroughfare clean.
Yeah, so if you go by today, they have a construction entrance that has the heavy gravel and stone on it, and they'll have bonding, you know. We're gonna have to make sure it stays clean, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's probably your question.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
A lot of people going there now.
Yeah, with the new grocery store, I
With the
think
grocery
traffic
store,
on that's
so
double.
want to keep everything happy.
Yeah. Yep.
Anything else, Warren?
No, that was it.
Good.
Thank you.
Patrick?
I don't have anything, Mayor.
All right. City clerk?
You make callers.
Yeah, I do have a report.
Oh, actually, there is. She
I'm
wanted
just
to know.
kidding.
Well, actually, she wanted to know,
Oh, yeah.
who's going
To
to
the
the
state of the county address?
Yeah.
She has the mayor, Rick, Danny, Patrick, and Kevin highlighted, so I'm assuming,
I think that's who she doesn't know.
right.
I'm not going.
Okay.
I'll be out of town.
I'm not going. That's Ed or,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's, what's the date on that, Mike?
I want to.
28th, I believe.
Yeah.
Is it 28?
It's a Tuesday. I was going to go, but I'm not off work now, so I won't be able to make it. But I let them know that I'm knocked out. So maybe Daryl can take my spot.
No, I will not.
Got surgery the next day.
I won't be
It's a good one.
Okay.
Are you going, Michael? Yeah.
You'll be at a table by yourself. Sounds like.
Sarah, who, me?
Yeah.
I can hold down a table.
The meals just
Yeah.
increased.
Tuesday, the 28th.
Oh, Mike, you had one other thing to bring up. The communication meeting. Broadband.
The broadband meeting? Yeah.
You were
Danny, did
gonna see
you
it.
get the email today?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
And
okay, good.
I can
Thanks
be
for the
there.
reminder. Yeah, so we're scheduling our next broadband meeting. Kevin and Danny can attend, but Lori couldn't attend the time that we decided could work. So I was wondering if there was anybody else that wanted to serve on that committee, at least for a day or a meeting, or maybe
Maybe
we'll.
there's a meeting.
5 o'clock.
Monday, right?
Yeah.
It's at 5 o'clock on a day.
That's all.
My next day off isn't until April 25th. I don't think it'll be enough on.
Would it help, Lori, if we just move that later?
Well, 7:30 in the morning works too. I don't know why everybody is there. It'd have to be after 6 though, if you're away. You know,
I don't have it on my calendar, and I think it was Monday. Do you have it?
This coming Monday?
Yeah, this coming Monday.
Yeah, it's the 27th at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Is when your email came
The
out.
27th,
But, you know,
Not this coming.
so that's not.
you gotta work till 6, right,
I'll
Lori?
be out of town.
You're busy till 6, right?
Yeah.
I can go later, I don't know about Kevin, I can wait.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Rick's gonna be out of town.
You know, if she doesn't get off to our 6 and give her time to get here 7 o'clock, I can come at 7.
Oh, it doesn't have to be that late, I mean, I can be here in 10 minutes, usually.
So 6:15,
Yeah,
6:30?
I could do that.
Let's just, I'll just,
Amend the time?
yeah, we'll just move the time back
That's
to
the 27th.
27th, so it'd be like 6:15.
6:15?
It's kinda Monday, Monday, 27th at 6:15. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. There'll be court that night, so we'll just meet back.
Sure.
Back here. I'll tell Kevin. All right, thank you. Thanks for reminding me, Lord.
We'll do, council comments. Danny?
Mike, have we heard anything, just a question, just one question tonight, Mayor. I just wanna know if we'd heard anything since the books went out.
Any feedback on, you mean Discovery
Yeah,
Soto?
yeah.
We've had 22 responses to that online poll.
Okay.
And just a couple of compliments that people like. Of the responses to the online poll, we just asked 3 questions, I think. We said, do you like the print version, or would electronic be okay? And it's about 2/3 yes print, 1/3 electronic. The next question was, do you want it mailed, or can you pick it up at a local business? And again, about 2/3 wanted mailed, and 1/3 mailed. I can't remember what the third question was. Something, but, it's been pretty positive response. So. And we do, and Rose mentioned, thanked for, and I'm gonna be talking to Rose, so we do at some point need to make the decision, probably in the next month or so, if we're gonna do something again with this Discovering DeSoto for the next edition, because Rose kind of needs to get started on that. That whole discussion we need to have, because we talked about doing the Discovering DeSoto thing this time, see how it goes, see what the feedback is, and then maybe talk about, we could change gears, do something different, do an in-house newsletter, do something else. So we'll have that discussion here in the next couple of council meetings.
I think either, there's just good points and bad points on all of it. So
Yeah.
It's formative, but, when we were discussing it and how many extra copies that we needed, well, if we ever do it again in the future, the thing to remember is everybody that goes to the post office, there was in the trash, so I've got a pile like this.
Is that
And so does
right?
Max have a pile like that.
You're
that
kidding.
he dug out of the trash from the post office, cause the Rotarians go get the
Yeah.
trash and
Recycle.
recycle it. And so he brought a bunch up to me and he asked, do you need any more?
Wow.
So,
I was being stingy with our 20 here at City
yeah,
Hall.
so I have a whole pile of them at,
Okay.
and he has more if you need some, just call Max.
I'll put ours out.
Yeah, yeah. So I have them sitting out for people to take, but it was kinda interesting.
Yeah. I thought it turned out great. I mean, I was real happy with the look of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it
It was a great
And it
magazine.
worked well. I mean,
Well,
the
Wait to hear the end of the survey stuff and all that,
yeah,
that'd be great.
the coordination with Rose and the generation of the content, and she met with folks here at City Hall, and I mean, it worked out pretty well.
What did that cost us again?
$4,600.
As long as she still is able to make a living with what, which I'm sure she doesn't sell $4,600, just sell it. So,
Yeah.
but I don't know if she made any off of that part of it, you know what I mean? As long as she's still making.
I don't think she's getting rich.
Well, hers has been the advertising. The advertising
Yeah.
is what pays her salary, and I understand that. It's just.
All right, anything else, Danny?
No, thank you, Mayor, that's it. Thank you.
Ron?
The only thing I'd say was I enjoyed and I thought it was a very productive meeting we had at the college. I don't know how you guys felt, but I felt like we really accomplished a lot of things, got a lot of things out.
And to that, I forgot, but I got Jeannie's write-up on that. I'll get that out to you tomorrow. I've had it for a couple days. So, yeah, she gave a good summary on there. I'll get that out to you.
All right. Anything else? No? Great.
Oh, no, nothing like that.
Lauren?
Only thing I have is to mention that I'll be on for the April 20th meeting, so hopefully everybody else will be here.
Which meeting?
April 20th, I think it's April 20th. Again, I just need to make sure I get to the right, yeah, April 20th.
Thanks.
Kevin?
Mike, we heard any word on the fire district meeting that we were gonna attend?
Yeah, did I send an email out on that to all of you? Yeah, Patrick and I did submit the red line of the lease agreement to Walt McDaniel and Chief Wim. And I heard from Walt over the weekend that they reviewed it and they had some ideas, some little concerns about maybe something catastrophic maintenance-wise happening that they couldn't really budget for, and maybe some other ideas. But I'm gonna attend their next fire board meeting. That's April 2nd, April 3rd, I think. So I'll be there to have that discussion and answer those questions. Yeah, but I think I expressed the desire that the council was kind of, as far as staff, kind of shame on us that we haven't pressed that issue more. But the council is really motivated to get something resolved sooner rather than later, and they understand that. I'll know more after that meeting.
Well, when it comes to something happening catastrophic, I mean, aren't they in that same situation with their other stations? I mean, that could happen to anything, and I guess, the only thing, that comes off the top of my mind right away on that is if something would happen, maybe there's a way we can help them out financially getting through it, but still their responsibility,
Insurance.
If we had to do
You
it.
have insurance on the building, right?
Yeah.
And it would have
Yeah,
insurance
I
on the
mean,
content,
Yeah,
so.
so I mean, air conditioner goes off or something like that, but there, I'm not,
There's just, I didn't hear any massive aversion to what we sent
Yeah.
them. There's just some things.
yeah.
Well, I know we talked about meeting with them, so I was just interested
Yeah.
if we did or didn't.
Haven't yet.
You were doing like over committee or something. I thought you were too.
Anything else, Kevin? I don't have anything for tonight.
I'll second.
All in favor, aye? All right.
Yes.
Maybe what? Oh, really?